still manage to find good lunch, because that's helping you to maintain your resilience. Oh, so that you've got all of your needs met and you can pay attention this afternoon. Okay, so let's get into the framework that Bobby and I created, the Resilience Rainbow. And this came out of a desire to create a framework or platform that people could create training plans when they're working with their dogs that would fit with the resilience conversation.
Why bring a whole bunch of people together in Truro?
Right, well, it was a crazy idea. I actually have become more and more involved with dogs and pets, but mainly dogs with behavioral pathologies and behavioral abnormalities, and as well as dog sports people who are struggling with their dogs in competition. And after getting off of COVID, resilience seems to be a word that we've all been quite cognizant of. And it became a program that I kind of had reached out to the behavior vets team about, had been following because of my little dog, Trout, who actually has behavioral pathologies. And so I wanted this information. They mentioned that they were starting to do a tour and taking this information on the road, their first set of events post-COVID out in the world. And I crazily said, hey, do you want me to host? And it took off from there. You got to be one of the first ones. I got to be one of the first ones. I was actually the first one to host outside of the United States, and actually the second in-person event for them in a post-COVID era.
The joke was always that, like, you know, there's people that treat their dogs like children, but I'm always wondering, is that what we need to be doing? Like thinking of them as little people with individual personalities and...
Not quite.
We're not quite there yet.
Well, not quite, we shouldn't be doing that, quite. Like, I think there's the individual personalities is really important. And understanding that they have, you know, they think they have ideas and thoughts and feelings about things is important. And they're dogs. And there's breed-specific characteristics that we have to take into consideration.
And they have needs.
And
dogs have needs that are not the same as humans' needs.
Yes.
So yes, there is that complexity, and yes, there is that individuality, but that doesn't mean what works for humans works for dogs. Yeah. That doesn't mean they're just little fairy children.
So that's where we have to be careful. Like, there's still animals with a different...
And because what happens sometimes when people do treat them like children is they're not actually meeting the needs of that dog, right? They're treating them like children, and they're loving them, and they're adoring them, and they might not be meeting the needs that dog has. And so it could create other problems behaviorally.
Our understanding of canine behavior has been evolving over the past few years as animals have become more like family members. Slowly, we are moving away from the idea that all dogs learn the same way and react the same way. Not children, but still individuals with individual needs. Bobby and Kathy created the Resiliency Rainbow as a framework to build resilience in dogs and other animals. What's resilience? Simply put, it's an animal's ability to recover from stress. Kathy and Bobby's goal? Improving the mental well-being of our canine friends.
Having the information, the neuroscience, and then is completely changed over the last decade. How I work with dogs and people completely changed the way that I address or approach behavior issues. And I'd say, you know, if people stick with it, they see progress. And it might not be what they hoped, like when they first signed up, right? So some of it is about adjusting expectations and getting really related to what's in front of you and accepting it, surrendering to it. And when you can help them do that, it's like incredible what you can achieve.
The adolescence conversation is a good one for that. Like, once you understand the neurobiological changes that are happening in the brain of an adolescent, you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
It's a relief, honestly, to be
like... They don't hate me.
They will start to listen again. Oh, thank you. I didn't break this dog, or whatever it might be.
Good boy. And he's allowed to get ahead of me. He's allowed to pull, because this is a little bit of a fun thing. He just can't go crazy. And so we want him to be calm going in, so that he has his head, so that he knows that I'm here too. And this will help get some of that weight off of him, so that he can actually decompress at home and be a real dog. Because it's not his fault that he wants to hunt birds, because he's a pointer, and he's hunted them. We just need a little bit of control so that you can take him out and not be pulled all over the world.
And they're dealing with big feelings and they have lower resilience during adolescence. They actually physiologically take twice as long to recover once they've experienced something that's stressful. That's something they can't change. They can't magically make that go away, right? But once we understand that, we can set them up better for success. And it's not about giving up on your adolescent dog and saying, hey, I'll come back in a few months or a year when you're through adolescence. It's just about saying, you know, things will be different tomorrow. The brain that I'm training on Monday is not the same brain I'm training on
develop
Tuesday.
very quickly.
My interest is in cat and dog behavior, dog more so. This is Forrest. He is a 2-year-old border collie. He can be anxious with greetings, but I'm also treating him for his anxiety. I work hard at his behavior modification and having him do his relaxation work. Forrest, relax.
He knows you're talking. Oh, that was pretty good.
And the medication helps him and allows him to learn new skills, you know, certainly in environments like this that are different for him.
Learn your dog is a phrase that we use, so actually spend the time appreciating that I need to learn what's going on for you rather than teach you stuff.
Yeah.
I need to listen to you and understand, and that's hard, right, because they don't speak our language. So I have to learn about you.
You're learning the cues.
Yeah.
So this is one example where the children analogy can be helpful for clients is, you know, like if you have more than one child, they're going to be different. They're going to have their own likes. They're going to have their own dislikes. And they get older and they evolve, and so their interests evolve. It's the same thing for the dog when you're learning your dog. And you might have an agenda, but if you stick too much to your agenda, it could potentially chip away at resilience over time. And that's something that we're really talking about now with puppies as well. It's not just addressing behavior issues, it's also like, how are you raising your dog? You want to put them into situations that can be stressful, because that's part of your lifestyle, or that's part of what you enjoy, or that's part of the work that you do. Then it's really important that resilience is part of what you're doing when you're raising that puppy.
It would be unfair of me to just keep him there when we know that he's distracted up there. He doesn't have the skills to be able to sit there and wait.
So you went to the seminar in Toronto?
Yes, right.
What was it about that you felt connected with what you do?
Well, number one, the trainer and RVT that put on the seminar, she's very skilled, Barbara Degg, and they just kind of talked a lot about brain function and, you know, the physical parts of the brain, the science behind it, and that's what attracted me.
Is it worth people who think their pet has this sort of issue to search out veterinarians who have some expertise or some training?
Absolutely, yeah. And most veterinarians will tell their clients their comfort level.
So at what point would you advise people, it's time to come see someone like
It's time
you?
to come see someone like me. So if they can't get their dog back, if it's happening more frequently, if it seems like whatever I do with training, nothing's working, or is it, you know, to the point where it's impacting their daily life, then they should reach to their vet for a referral.
Now there is science behind it, like real science behind this now.
Yeah, absolutely. And for decades now, we've been studying resilience in humans and also studying resilience in the laboratory with laboratory animals, where we can really control all of the factors so that we can learn, okay, what's happening to the nervous system when we work with an individual to build their resilience and what changes are occurring. And it turns out that those changes are happening at lots of levels. So one of the levels is that it's changing the way that the brain areas interact to make it easier or more difficult to behave in a proportional and appropriate way to the environmental change that is happening. Another change is that it's actually changing the something called the epigenetic kind of fingerprint for that animal. And what that means is how its genome, so how the DNA, so the very core of the genetics of that individual, how those genetics interact with the environment
to support the display of appropriate behaviours and proportional behaviours.
For some individuals, the world can be a scary place, and actually there is a lot of management and a lot of environmental change needed in order to create a sense of safety for that individual.
We could be talking about any animal, out in the wild. This is happening. It's happening with humans, just in our day-to-day experience, like epigenetics. It's occurring, and so we don't even have to intentionally do anything. The dog could be sitting on the couch all day, and then you coming home, and then there's an event, so that's already happening. And now we can actually take that information and help us create a training plan to better support that dog, or to address the issues, or address quality of life issues, or raising the puppy, things like that.
So I'm actually fascinated that you're here at a weekend seminar on resiliency and behavior and all that, but you have the perfect dog.
It's good that you asked that. She was one of my easiest dogs that I've ever had to train. But a year and a half-ish pre-COVID, she got attacked twice while she was working in a store. It took 7 months of working, counter conditioning, to actually work to get to the point where her and I were going to be comfortable going back out, but she still reacts to certain dogs. I had been watching this ad come up and think, this is something I can do and learn more, even more. So I've been a vet tech for a very long time. I've been a vet tech for 29 years.
It strikes me that this change with the DNA and the response to the environment that's happening, at the same time, maybe more so with dogs than most other animals, except maybe horses, we're breeding them for certain traits, right? Often what they look like, because that's how you win in a conformation show, sometimes for agility or herding or whatever, but does that make it potentially worse?
You hit the nail on the head. We're breeding different breeds for the expression of different behaviours, like herding breeds to express the behaviour associated with herding. Then what happens is, potentially those dogs are ending up in a home where they don't have a natural expression for that behaviour that is driven by their generations of breeding. And so then what happens? Do we end up with an individual who's frustrated, for instance? You remember how you behave when you're really frustrated, so road rage for me is the best example. If I'm sat in a traffic jam and I have to be somewhere, I'm getting frustrated. There's a whole bunch of behaviour that I don't usually display associated with that experience. But that's because I'm coming from frustration. That behaviour doesn't exhibit itself if actually I have an outlet for that frustration.
But you can't tell a dog to say, it's okay, you're sitting there in front of a TV and no one's taking you for a walk.
Right.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So then it's about working with the dog and
the guardian.
And building that ability to be able to choose appropriate coping strategies, healthy coping strategies that really work for the individual, and to manage their emotions, so that emotional stability and that cognitive learning of coping skills, but also behavioural strategies that work in certain environments. So we need to find, in the example we were using where we've got a herding dog that now has no outlet for the herding, we need to create that for the dog. Now, we can work with the dog and not create that, but that is potentially working against biology, and that is always going to be an uphill struggle. If we actually work with the biology and say, okay, we're not going to give you a herd of sheep because that's not going to go well.
Especially because you live in suburbia with children.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. But we are going to give you this game that you can express your herding natural behaviours, and so you have an outlet for that, but it's safe, it's secure, and it doesn't involve any sheep being stressed in the process.
Or chasing children, right? Like we don't want to
Right,
do
because
any of
they
that.
will, we hear that all the time, like,
Yeah.
"Geez, they're hurting my kids." If you had a human with anxiety,
Right.
obviously there are medications you can take,
Right.
but part of that would also involve counseling,
Right.
Usually.
Right.
But you can't do that with a dog. I mean, you can't.
We can,
Oh, okay, well
absolutely
then,
can.
I'm interested to know how this works.
So we would look at that dog and say, okay, this anti-anxiety medication can certainly help. It's probably only like 30 to 50% of the picture though, and the other parts of the picture are managing the environment, so decreasing the triggers that are exposed initially to him until we can get them under a threshold of control. And then also teaching them behavior modifying exercises or doggy cognitive behavioral therapy, doggy meditation, doggy deep breathing.
wow.
We can do all those things, and it's much easier than what you'd expect. Just for example, we can have a dog reinforced over and over and over to take a deep breath. We give them a piece of food when they're looking at us in the eye and their little nostrils flare out, and we reward that.
Okay.
And they start to
So
associate.
you have to really pay attention to those.
You really got to pay
cues.
attention to the cues. Forrest, relax.
He knows you're talking. Oh, that was pretty good. So as a trainer, how hard is that to describe to clients, to say, you actually need to provide an appropriate outlet for the breed or personality of the dog you have?
I think for the most part, if someone is coming to work with me, they recognize that something's wrong or something's not working, for the most part. Maybe not desperate, but sometimes desperate. Yeah. And I work with a lot of behavior cases. So in the work that we do at Behavior Vets, a practice in America is they come to us with significant behavior issues, typically. And I work alongside veterinary behaviorists. So lots of times these dogs need a medicinal support, like pharmaceutical support, behavior modification, in addition to the training, in addition to the therapy, in addition to enrichment and management that can support that dog in hopefully progressing or the quality of life improving for both the family and the dog. We're having really honest conversations, like on social media, with the public, with people that we meet, like taking into consideration, like, what dog did you get? Like, if you want a dog, are you choosing a dog that best matches your lifestyle? Right? If you like to sit on the couch all day, don't get a herding dog. Like, don't get a really energetic dog, whether it's the breeds you're looking at or even just the personality of the dog, right? My husband's favorite dog we have 7 dogs. My husband's favorite dog is our pit bull, who likes to lie around all day in the office with him while he's working, or he's watching a sports game, and she's just like curled up at his feet. What makes you happy? What feeds you? What do you enjoy? Do you really enjoy going to concerts? Is that your music, your thing? Are you really into sports games? Like, it makes you happy if you get to do that. You feel fulfilled if you get to do that. If that's your thing and you don't ever get to do that, that's going to build frustration, that's going to build resentment, that's going to build other negative feelings that can impact your personality, that can impact your behavior, the choices you make, how you treat people around you. And so we try to make it about, like, how does it relate to you? Like, how is it for people, to help them understand what it's like for the dog? And usually by then, they are like, oh, I get it. I didn't see it that way. And it's not that people don't want to. I think they just don't understand that it can be that complex for dogs.
You're stressed. Every time.
And I'm trying so hard because you're wearing the vest, and I'm like, I'm not supposed to touch a dog with the vest, are you?
Yeah.
Don't do what I'm doing when don't touch a dog that has a vest.
Yeah,
Unless you're the
exactly.
host.
Unless you're the host and the handler says, okay.
Yeah.
I am actually 19 years now. I've been working as a rehabilitation technician. So I do physio on dogs.
Right.
And I do a lot of hands-on with dogs. So I have to touch, move, handle, do a lot. So this was one more component to learn how to help those dogs be more comfortable within the situation that I have to put them in.
And it still gives me that worry, just thinking about it. Him walking out back with somebody he doesn't know, into an environment he doesn't know, into being held by somebody he doesn't know. I'm terrified.
And you may not know them, right? You
Yeah.
may not know what happens when they go through the magic doors.
Yeah.
You're seeing this because of your own dog,
Yeah.
but also because of
Yeah.
from a work point of view as well.
From a work point of view, it became I really want to do this because I have to make dogs do things that maybe is a little uncomfortable for them. How can I do it better for them?
So why do this?
For me, it's about getting this information out there. And, we can read the information on the internet. The internet has made the world a very small place in that sense. We have knowledge available to us. But there is nothing like human interaction, human experience, group experience. Actually creating an event that enables people to explore all of their questions and conversations throughout the weekend. And actually go away with a whole bunch of new tools in their toolkit to say, hey, I now have other options for how I'm going to support those dogs.
What advice would you give generally to people who are like, I think there's something?
The big thing is starting as a young puppy. If you see your puppy barking and kind of like jumping forward or jumping back or both, that puppy's nervous about something. So the barking is the first thing. It's the first sign of, you know, if it's not like barking because you're running around and playing, that's a different context. But if you see your dog or puppy, even adult dog, barking, they're probably worried, but what can I do to help him now before it escalates to anything else? And then, of course, adding adversives to that. So whether it's, you know, just yelling at your dog to be quiet or a shock collar or, you know, whatever it may be, is adding fuel to the emotional fire that could be brewing.
So yeah, I think we are at the point where we have to recognize not only are our dogs really individuals, and we're not talking about the differences just between breeds, we're talking about the differences within breeds, and they can be as starkly different. But they're also sometimes the daily lifestyles that we're asking those dogs to live harmoniously with us in don't necessarily speak to that dog in terms of its biological sensitivities. And so we need to be cognizant of that, we need to recognize that, and we need to say, I'm going to treat you like an individual. And, you know, let's face it, they're not robots, they're not computer programs, they have emotions, we know that now. That's also a relatively modern conversation.
In the last decade or so.
Yeah, that dogs have emotions, but we know that now. Science has shown us that.
I mean, we always knew, right? We, like, maybe if you really pay attention.
My dog likes me.
Yeah, or like my dog is sad.
We saw he had a few moments, but you know what? We all have moments, and he's allowed to have moments. So he did much better than last time that we were out here. And yeah, hopefully have a good rest. But we'll bring Morgan out next time just so that she has an idea of working with him, so that her expectations, because again, a lot of it's about expectations.
We're discovering more and more about how complex their emotionality is and their cognition and decision making. So it's making much more sense to look at them as individuals and to really look at, okay, is my lifestyle fulfilling your needs? Do you have sensitivities that I'm not noticing that I need to take account of? And how can I support you in being able to build resilience so that you can better cope with those sensitivities?
Big thing is we always think we need to socialize our dogs more, and we tend to over-socialize them. So the big thing I would say is that read your dog as an individual, and is he or she comfortable in the situation you're putting them in? If not, let's rethink something.
And that's where the building resilience is key, because if you build that resilience, that individual's resilience, you can then teach them various things. Their brain is in the right physiological condition to receive that and to be able to do something with that information.